Hey YouTube, this is Zach. Welcome to my Twitch stream. We're kind of breaking the fourth wall here. You're joining me on my Twitch stream. This is going to be really informal compared to what I normally do. It's been a very long time since I talked about everyone's favorite singer, James LaBrie. And it's time. It's time. And there are reasons for this. And I'm doing this through my Twitch stream so that I can be a little more in depth and we can just kind of watch the video of the performance, because I'm doing a song that a lot of you probably would not expect me to analyze, and there's a lot of long periods of just watching. I'm analyzing A Change of Seasons from their most recent tour. This was 2 months ago in California, Oceanside. First thing I want to do before I start, shout out to whoever Steve is and Steve's channel. That he's got a great video. I've already gone through this. Is a great video of this performance. You can see a little bit of everything. It looks really good. Audio quality is really good, so I think he's got some pretty good live recording. So thanks, Steve, whoever you are out there in the internets, in the interwebs, thank you. So here's the big question that you all should be wondering: why am I talking about James LaBrie again? You know, why James LaBrie? This is your third video about him. Well, I haven't talked about James LaBrie in like 5 years, 6 years, and the main reason that I'm going to talk about James LaBrie, we're going to go through A Change of Seasons. We're going to go through the whole song, all 24-ish minutes of it, is because this song is probably one of their most vocally diverse songs of their entire catalog, where James has to go through the most different styles and sounds and approaches to singing. But specifically, the reason I want to talk about James is that he's been kind of getting a little bit of momentum in the internet spheres. His fans are always, Dream Theater fans are always very loyal and, super rabid and whatnot. But recently, James has been getting some recognition because his voice has supposedly been improving. And so, of course, when I hear that, I've got to watch for myself to see, because, I mean, obviously, it's just been rough lately with him. And I've had lots of commentary. I still get all sorts of questions about James, because I've said things like I think he needs to retire. Like, I got in the official Dream Theater Facebook group, I posted a big thing about like how I thought the band needs to manage his voice for the rest of their career, and I thought that ultimately the best thing for him is to end up retiring. And I still don't believe that at 62 he has too much left to prove as a singer. I think that he's already done everything that he needs to do. The band has accomplished everything they need to accomplish. They've won Grammys. They toured the whole world. They were a grassroots, basically, internet band that was only marginally popular in the early 90s, that used the internet to proliferate themselves into one of the most popular bands in the world. They're virtuoso musicians who just have done it all. So they don't really have anything else to prove. So my comment on that Facebook post, I think it's been deleted since then or locked or something, because it turned really toxic. As do so many comments, things I comment on instead of going toxic, because no one likes, truth in this world or something. I don't know. When you start talking about critique and commentary that could actually be productive, that is honest, people don't like it. So it got really toxic. But ultimately what I ended up saying is that I think that, he has nothing left to prove, and that the band is running him into the ground, and it's probably best for him to retire. But this past year, the word has gotten out that he went to some kind of vocal physician or some kind of institution that did laryngeal massage. And so I know a little bit about laryngeal massage. I've never done it myself, but I did a workshop with an operatic baritone named Jeffrey Wells back when I was in college. He was a former Metropolitan Opera singer. I did a workshop with him. And he was a big proponent of laryngeal massage. He was also very much into like the physical structure of the body and understanding its role in singing and things like that. He actually said that one of his regimens and routines that he does regularly as an opera singer is gets laryngeal massage. And he knew it so well that he could do it himself. It was the weirdest thing ever. He literally took his larynx and like moved it to the side and massaged the muscles underneath. Craziest thing in the world. Like the dude, like it looked like he dislocated his neck. And it was, the whole room was like, everyone kind of freaked when he did it, but apparently it feels amazing as a singer. But you have to either know how to do it extremely precisely, or you have to have a professional that has some kind of degree in it, because obviously moving your larynx out of the way to massage can cause some serious problems. But apparently it's very good for helping the vocal muscles underneath the cartilage of the larynx, like the voice box itself underneath there. It's good to help it relax and to kind of keep things loose and more free. So that caught my attention because I thought, okay, well, if he's actually getting some real vocal treatment now, maybe there are some real changes. Maybe there's been some real good that's been done to his voice. And another thing that I heard was that he was getting some real like instruction from some kind of legit voice teacher and not all these frauds who have been trying to, help him and coach him throughout the years. As a matter of fact, one of those people actually responded to my Facebook post that I made trying to defend what he did with James and was like, oh, you guys don't know what James has been through. And like, oh, I taught him completely fine. Everything I did was, but you didn't, bro. Like, you know who you are. I'm not going to call names and I don't want there to be drama. But if you see this, you know who you are. You did not help him. You know that. Because how he's singing now, which he's still not perfect, but as you'll see in this video, he's much better, is not a sound that you were causing him to create. On a side note, this is kind of funny. I don't think the band likes me very much either. I'm not going to say who, but someone tried to buy me a gift of having James LaBrie do like a cameo video for me, I guess saying hello or whatever. And when the band found out, or when he found out who the video was for, he canceled it. So I think the band knows who I am. I don't think they like me very much, but that's okay because I think that I'm vindicated through James's performances now because having already watched this and having already kind of prepared analytically, he's doing a lot of things that I advocate for, and I think that he's using a much more classical approach to singing now. He's not a classical singer, and he doesn't sound like a classical singer, but in terms of like classical pedagogy and the kind of classical approach to vocalization and phonation, he's doing a lot more of the things that classical teachers teach their students to do. And so it makes me feel kind of like, well, maybe if he had had a teacher all along that was helping him with this stuff, he'd be okay. He wouldn't have had the big problems that he did. And he did have a voice teacher, Rosemary Burns, in the early 90s. And that was when his voice was at its peak, but I think she passed away. So he stopped getting that same kind of vocal instruction, and they started trying to make him sound raspier and rougher and all that kind of thing. We already don't have a lot of good research on the harsh vocals. We have some studies being done, but we don't have a ton of data on it. Back then, there was almost none. So nobody knew what they were doing back then as far as like doing raspy, guttural, rough, harsh vocals or whatever. And so I know that at least Mike Portnoy was pushing really hard for them to sound rougher and edgier and more of the growly, guttural sound in his singing. And I don't think that did him any favors. Now, I've gone in depth about this extensively in older videos, so I'm not going to go through it all now. What I'm here to do today, ultimately, is I want us to go through a change of seasons, start to finish, and you'll get to hear, this is 2 months ago, so you can hear what James sounds like now, post laryngeal treatment, post this new training that he's getting. And I could probably give you some pretty clear examples of what he's doing differently and why it is working to the extent that it is. Now, it's James and he's in his 60s, so don't expect perfection. But anybody who's been keeping up with the band and knows how James has been in the recent past should see this as a pretty clear improvement. So I don't want to spoil too much, but we'll start it right here. So if you don't know, this is a change of seasons. They released an EP in 1995, and this is like a huge epic 24, 25 minute long song. A lot of people think it's their best song they've ever written. I certainly do think it's in their top 5 or so songs. It's a magnificent song. It kind of covers the whole ground of everything that makes Dream Theater who they are. And I think that their songwriting was really at its peak when they wrote this. So anyway, here we go. This is a change of seasons. I hope you guys can hear this. And we are off.
Just like your feet. The world is their oyster. They believe they're destined for great things, just like many of you, their eyes are full of hope. Did they wait till it was too late to make from their lives even one iota of what they were capable of? Because you see, gentlemen, these boys are now as fertilizing daffodils. If you listen real close, you can hear the whisper of a legacy to you. Lean in. Listen. You hear it?
There's a lot of instrumental in this, so just enjoy. It's a great song. Really, truly great song that they wrote. One of their best. So, anything about James, this is a massive, massive improvement over how he's been sounding recently. It's not 1995 James, but this is absolutely as good as he has sounded in the past. I don't know. I would even go as far as to say like 25, 26 years. I think that he might have sounded pretty close to this good during the Scenes from Memory tour when they toured the whole album. They played a Change of Seasons then as well, and there's actually on the Live in New York DVD, you can watch them play this song there. And I think that at least up to this point in the performance, it's as good. And some of the things to look at here that are really important, it's kind of distant, so you don't get a really good close up. But one thing that you can consistently see is when he's singing these lines, his embouchures, his lip shapes are so much more narrow, and his posture. I mean, he's got his knee up here, and that's a little weird. But generally speaking, his posture is so much more stable. If you watch him sing in the more recent stuff, like the past 5 to 10 years, like he does a lot of this like leaning back thing, open his mouth out really wide and sticking his tongue out and all these kind of things. He doesn't do that at all anymore. Almost completely gone. You can hear the stability in his sound because the posture is more stable and it's more even, it's more balanced. His body isn't doing anything out of the ordinary. He's not doing any crazy motions. He's keeping everything very vertical and aligned. It's great. So another thing to keep in mind here is that this is the end of their set. This is a 2-act set. This is like 3 hours in. So he's already been singing for like over 2.5 hours and he's nailing this at this point. So kudos. I mean, just the first impression from here, even without going into analysis. I mean, I already did analyze a little bit, but even without thinking about it analytically, this is such a shockingly, drastically different performance from what you would expect out of him over the past few years that you've got to give the guy props. Like, he's clearly put in the work. He's clearly put in some effort to retain and rebuild some aspect of his singing abilities, and it shows. Like, it's really nice. There's more to it here. He does a little bit of the breathy stuff, but he doesn't do it for very long. It's just the very beginning. He does that as an effect. As you all know, if you know the song, he does that at the beginning of the song anyway. Takes off the breathy stuff. He's got really stable, solid chord closure. His vibrato is a little wobbly, but that's to be expected at his age anyway. That's totally normal. Intonation is generally pretty darn good, way better than it has been in the past. So not a lot of complaints here. I rewinded it a little bit, but let's see if I can get back to where we were. This is fine. You see how stable his body is? That is such a massive difference. So you can see this is just so much more stable. It's very, very classical. This is why people think that opera and stuff is boring, or classical technique is boring, or classical singing is boring, because everybody's kind of like stiff. They seem stiff. People aren't head banging and all that kind of. Well, we do that because it gives our body stability, which gives our voices stability. And someone with classical pedigree got a hold of James. I just know. I mean, I know this because I teach in the classical pedagogy style, and I know the classical fundamentals of singing are, and he's doing them. And it makes a difference. I get so much heat. Like, as a matter of fact, I just read a comment about me a little while ago saying, oh, this guy's just a classical elitist, and he only likes opera singers and stuff. Like, that's not even it. It's not that. It's just that I know from experience in my education and through teaching people and from singing myself, I've very thoroughly studied on the voice. I've been teaching for over a decade now, a little bit. And I know that when you have these fundamental things in place, like good posture, stability of the diaphragm, stability of the vocal mechanism, the voice is going to be more consistent. And James is doing that. It's remarkable, honestly. And if you don't know James, if you've never watched James LaBrie, he's the reason that this channel even started. And there's a whole story behind him. His voice has been so polarizing. Like, most Dream Theater fans, they love the band and they either love him despite his inconsistencies or they listen past him. I'm kind of in between the two. But if you find people who don't like the band, it's usually one of two things. One, they say, oh, these guys are super talented musicians, but their music is pretentious and I don't like the way it sounds, it's cheesy, whatever. Or there's people who say, I love their music, but I can't stand their singer, right? So James has always been this super polarizing figure in Dream Theater. And it's just nice to see that he's developing, even at 62, he's kind of turned back the clock a little bit, and he's got some consistency going again. It's really nice, and he deserves the credit for it because he's taken so much flack for years because of his vocal inconsistencies. And it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's so much better that I don't even want to go through yet. We will a little later. At this point, I don't want to go through and pick out all the nitpicky issues. It's just so much better. Look at his embouchures. Like, even he's singing the word me and he goes an which is kind of weird, but like you can even see that his mouth is not super wide on these vowels. He's keeping everything vertical and aligned. It's just good stuff. So much better than what he used to do. See, okay, so here, I said I wasn't going to get super picky, but here I go. He started, you could see one of those old habits that he tilted his head back and then he stopped and he stabilized himself. That's part of developing as a singer, is knowing that you have old habits and resisting them. If this were 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, he would have tilted his head all the way back and let that larynx get overextended. Not here. He stopped himself. He tilted back a little bit and stopped, and he kept his vowel. The word is more, so it should be more of an and he's kind of using an That's fine. He modifies. That's not a huge deal. But he keeps the vowel consistent. He doesn't tilt his head back too much. It's a sign that he's being more disciplined with his singing. I want you all just to look at how stable his body is when he sings. That's a huge part of this. A little bit of a high breath. He raised his shoulders. He's always done that, though. Even when he was at his peak, he's never had super great breath management. That one was better. Yeah, so he leaned down for that note, which I guess was kind of unnecessary, but he still didn't do anything too crazy. He stayed still as he was holding it. It's funny because he has all these tendencies that are just part of his stage presence and the way that he delivers his performances, and you can kind of see him like catching himself. Wait a minute, I need to keep myself at least somewhat vertical so I don't bend over and lose all of my support completely. But even on the high note, even on that note, you can hear that he's got a very the vowel choice is a little weird. It's like nah, but it's consistent and it's stable. And he doesn't have that like laser beam sound that he used to have. And I think if I had to guess, like if I had to just throw a guess out there, and I'll talk about this more a little later, I think what's happening is he's creating some more space, especially pharyngeal, but he's still got a little bit of a raised tongue in the back. And I'll talk about that more later. But I think that that's what someone has told him how to do. Like, compensate for his poor tongue placement. Like he used to have his tongue sticking out, by pulling the tongue back a little bit and creating more space kind of in the back of the mouth. A little bit pharyngeal, but not like overtly like super high pharynx. I think that's what he's been coached to do. See, I mean, that was not perfect. It was kind of flat at the top. But in the past, when you hear him do this stuff that's kind of like reaching to the peak of his range, he just kind of like, and just do whatever and not even really try for the note and just be all over the place. And he'd stick his tongue out and it just was sloppy and drunk sounding. At least it's stable, and at least he's keeping his singing position intact and trying to sing notes. And he's 62, okay? You're going to lose your range as you get older. You're just going to. It's just the folds get less elastic, the cartilages harden, the larynx becomes more brittle. You're going to lose some range as you get older. It's just going to happen. So the fact that he's not able to sing the super high notes perfectly anymore is not a huge, huge deal as long as he's managing it consistently. Nice. See, look at that. Through that whole phrase, I don't like how he's bending forward. That's closing up his diaphragm, is closing up his lungs a little bit. But even so, when he does that phrase, he's completely stable. Like, I'm gonna go frame by frame. Well, look at this. This is just not the James LaBrie that we've known ever. I mean, it's just completely different. See, look. Stable. Complete physical stability. Poor posture there. Like, you want your shoulders to be back. You want to give your lungs the ability to fully expand. But I'll take it from him at this point. I will take it. And I'm you know, if it means that his singing is more consistent, I will tolerate some of these little foibles that he does that are imperfect, because it's so much better than it used to be. It's all he's ever needed is some structure, some stability, and someone giving him some consistent technique that he could fall back on and rely on. That's what he's always needed. I think I said that in my like side-by-side comparison video, that he really just needed a voice teacher that can give him some kind of consistency to work with, like for the rest of his career. Like, give him something that's manageable for him, and someone has done that. Thank heavens. There's some instrumental stuff here. No, there's not. No, there's not. There's a soft spot, the soft part. Then there's some instrumental stuff after it. And I'm letting this stuff play through too, because if people watch this on YouTube, I need the watch time. So you guys are helping me with my channel by watching along with me. So. Stable. Look at that. Look at those embouchures. He's not going like Vamba like he used to. Narrow embouchures, stable, upright, vertical posture. I think that he could probably lower the microphone a little bit. I think the microphone is a little bit high. Like, I would rather have someone singing down into a microphone so they don't have to feel like they're reaching their neck up. But still, like, even so, I mean, gosh, it just he used to pick the mic up and hold it back like that. It's like, I mean, it's just so much better. He's even got some of his old legato that he used to have. Like, he's carrying a sense of whine through it. I mean, it's not perfect, but like, gosh, I mean, if someone had just let me hear this without giving me any context, I would have thought that it was James in like the late 90s, like 1998 James, something like that. I would not have said this is James from 2025. So it's good to see. And it's sad because this past tour did not sell very well. They did not have good ticket sales, but I have a few. I mean, I don't want to start a war between the fans. It's like kind of like I did with Nightwish. Like, I don't want to do that with Dream Theater fans. I think there are some reasons for it, why they have not had as good as ticket sales or whatever. But even so, like, this deserves to be heard just for the sake of like James's redemption, so people can hear that the guy has actually definitively worked on his voice. So one thing in this section in the originals, he does like a melisma, around, something like that. So one thing that I do notice that he's completely lost, even despite the new training, is he's lost his vocal agility. Like, he doesn't really have any melisma anymore. That agility, that kind of ability to be more florid, and like in the florid lines, like kind of more complex motion in the voice, is almost completely gone. That could be attributed to the lack of flexibility from aging, but it's also that he's salvaging what he has left of his voice and his technique. So there are some things that they're just going to be kind of compromised. Okay, and I'm going to read some comments from Twitch as well so that I can answer some questions while we go, because I know that I always get a ton of questions about James anytime I bring up anything about him. From day one, when my channel started, I had tons of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the questions I get in my comments. Here's one. I know you're not criticizing him yet, but there's something that's always sounded odd these past 10 to 15 years about his timbre, and his consonants like S and T sound a bit strange. So I talked about the timbre in my last video I made about him, that I think that someone was teaching him to kind of make this like very straight tone, laser beam, nasal, hyperpharyngeal kind of sound to just produce something, and it didn't serve him very well. Yeah, his timbre is still a little weird, but he's never had the most typical timbre. His timbre's always been a little bit unique, even going back to his old stuff. He's got a distinctive voice in the way that it sounds, and maybe some of that is just, how his voice has aged. His consonants like S and T sound a bit strange. Well, that's because of his tongue usage, and that has been something that has been an Achilles heel of his entire career, I think. I don't think anybody ever really taught him how to properly use his tongue for each, different vowel types. And I'm going to go into this, like I said, a little bit later, but I think that someone has helped him with it a little bit, but he still struggles with it some. And we'll get there. Oh, that's clearly flat. Yeah, okay, so this is getting back into the old James, right? And he's got that kind of thing, right? But again, this is up in his range. It's getting kind of high for him. But you can also see a little bit, it's hard to tell with the lights, but you can see how his embouchure is getting kind of wide here too. He's getting this side to side thing, and so he's compromised what he was doing well before, and it's kind of getting a little wonky for him again. He tried. I mean, that was better sounding than. We're talking relatively here. That was better than he's sung a lot of high notes in the past, so it's okay. I'm being a little bit apologist with him here because I'm just trying to give the dude some credit for the work that he's clearly done. That's all. Mike Portnoy's never been a great singer. Not bad. This whole thing. So he's leaned forward. Like, it's weird, but if you think of him as sitting down and you look at his posture from his lower waist up his shoulders up to his head, it's vertical. Like he's just slanted, but it's completely vertical. So he's got some stability again in his diaphragm area. I don't like him having his leg up on the monitor. I don't like him bending, but at least the upper half of everything is vertical and his embouchures are vertical. Generally speaking, if you're thinking vertically when you sing stuff, you're going to be okay. Yeah. Seize the day. When he went to seize, I shouldn't be trying to sing James's notes. I'm clearly not in his range at all. But seize the day. Like he did that, and his embouchure was pretty clean, pretty nice. Yeah, I mean it's fine. This is fine. In tune. Sounds consistent. Not much more you can ask for from him. He's doing a lot of things right. Oh, there's the embouchure. There's that shouty thing again. The second he starts doing that, his pitch starts suffering. And he lost all of his enunciation. You have no idea what he's saying. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's some of the old James creeping back in, but I don't know. Some old habits die hard, I guess. There's only so much that you can do. There's only so much you can coach him out of. And the way I like to see it is in the bell curve. Like when he's in the middle of the bell curve, the notes that he's singing the most, like his most frequently used notes, kind of in the middle of his range are sounding so much better that, like, this is an outlier note for him now. Even though, like, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this is an easy note for him. His range is truncated a bit. So this is getting the top end of his range. He's not managing it perfectly well. It is what it is. Now, he's probably not, I don't think he does the descant, like the really high stuff here. I don't think he sings it at all. Yeah, he doesn't. It's so weird to hear John Petrucci using a flanger effect now. He never does that anymore. Yeah, this sounds like vintage James. That sounds very similar to the James on the studio recording. Very nice. Now, going back to the comment about the S and the T sounds, on All Is Lost, it kind of goes lach, like that's tongue placement. Let me go back a little bit more. On All Is Lost, right here. Lach. That sound comes from the tongue being too high in the back of the mouth. So again, I think that some of this is coaching. I think that he's been coached by whoever's working with him now. His tongue is so out of control. Just keep it in the back of the mouth and increase the pharyngeal space to compensate for it. And I think that's where some of that's coming from. Yeah, you could hear that almost Kermit the Frog sound. That's coming from the raised pharynx and the tongue being high. So if you do the Kermit the Frog sound, like a lot of that comes from kind of like condensing the space in the back of the mouth. Like not in the pharynx, but in the actual back in the tongue position. So I think that he's raising his tongue in the back quite a bit. Like there, he did it there. There. Yeah, he's pretty consistently sitting that tongue pretty high in the back of the mouth, I think. There. Yeah, and that stare, like the stuh, again, that kind of lispy sounding stuh is from the fact that his tongue is too high. Now that was a little like high larynx kind of pushed a little bit, but the tongue was lower, so it sounded like the tone didn't sound so, I guess, metallic sounding. Yeah, see, you can tell he's not sticking his tongue out, and so he's holding his tongue back more, undoubtedly. He's letting it arch in the back more than he needs to. So he's saying lost, if I'm hearing correctly. Well, I think it's lost, but his tongue is causing it to have like a lisp-like effect. Same thing. Tongue is flat and raised in the back. It's like wide and raised in the back. He hit the note. I would much rather hear him with that lisp and that kind of the weird S sound and that kind of like metallic, spacious pharynx, high tongue sound than what he used to do. I mean, we're talking relative here, right? We're talking relatively speaking. It's consistent, you know, whether you like the sound or not. What he's doing it consistently, and that's all he's ever needed to be able to ride out the rest of his career is just some consistency. This is their 40th anniversary tour, I think, or something like that. And Change of Seasons released 30 years ago, and they wrote it in like 33 years ago. I mean, the fact that he's able to pull it off this late in his career, and it sounds 75% of how it did when he recorded it originally is remarkable. I mean, he will never be a perfect singer, and he will always have some of these nagging issues for the rest of his career. But this is absolutely a sound and a technique that can carry him for the rest of his career. And I hope he sticks with it, and I hope he doesn't get swindled by some of these other people who have tried to who have successfully ruined his technique in the past. Like, I hope that he sticks with what he's doing because it's working. This is rough. Yeah. I mean, that's a brutally difficult line. Even back in the day when he sang this, it was never super consistent. And he even modified the melodies here and didn't sing some of the highest notes of it. I mean, like I said earlier, there comes a time where you just don't have the range anymore. You know, you can't lower this whole song by a half step or whatever. It's just too complex, and it would require them to have to do too many adjustments and changes to everything that they're playing. And so I think in that case, they just kind of had to let him do his best. There's some singing that's this high at the end for the last couple of notes, but that's the only time that he really has to, you know, go way up into that kind of like stratospheric range for him. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty high. I mean, you know, it's as consistent as you can expect out of him. And his embouchure isn't too crazy wide. His tongue's not sticking out. Things are vertical. He's got his chin tilted up just a little bit, but again, it's as good as you're going to get from him. I think it's totally fine. His vibrato even sounds more, I mean, it's really wide, like super wide, but it doesn't sound as manufactured as it was for so long. Like, there would be times where I'd listen to him sing, you know, in the recent past, and it literally sounded like he was going, oh, with his vibrato, like intentionally. This sounds more natural. It sounds more like the vibrato is coming from some laryngeal stability, some consistent chord closure. So it, you know, it sounds like the vibrato is more consistent than it used to be. Okay, so I keep stopping it, but there's little interesting things I didn't even notice it the first time that I listened through. On "Let's Feed Upon His Misery," like, he used actual Italianate cardinal vowels there on the word "feed upon his misery." He's always sung that with "fed upon his misery," but he actually used the proper cardinal vowels, and it's turned out nice. Listen to the words "let's feed upon his misery," and he doesn't do that thing he normally does. He actually uses the proper vowels. Listen to it. Right here. And it's more consistent and more in tune because he's using the proper vowels, and the vowels sound like the true vowel. He's creating, I can't see his face, so I can't see his embouchure, but he's creating the proper vocal tract configuration for those vowel sounds to make the resonance sound consistent. And it's more in tune, and it sounds pretty good. Yep, you know, he's close enough to the old James to be passable for his age. He's not even playing close to the original solo here. Huh, interesting. He does seem generally happier on stage now too. Like after watching, I went through several of their performances and songs and stuff to pick what I wanted to analyze here, and he does seem happier on stage. I think that there's a certain feeling that you get as a singer when you know that things are going well, that it makes you feel more spirited. You know, it makes you feel a little more joyful to be on stage. And I can kind of relate to that a little bit, especially when I first started getting vocal training. I never felt super confident on stage because I didn't feel like I ever really had things under control like I wanted to. But as I started developing some technique and I started getting more stable, a little more power and a little more control under my voice as I got older and got more training, and I started enjoying it more on stage too. Well, that's positive because he's looked dispirited on stage since '95. Well, '95, the food poisoning incident happened around then, and I'm still like, I'm still not sold on that story. Not that it didn't happen. It's not that it didn't happen. I just think that there were more variables in play than just the food poisoning. I've had food poisoning, and I've sung after I had food poisoning. I vomited before, and I've had to sing in the days after, like after I was sick. I mean, I've done that multiple times actually. I had a really bad stomach bug at one point when I was in high school. Actually, I had a really bad stomach bug when I performed in a musical. I think it was my sophomore year in high school. I had I don't remember if I got the flu, but I did 2 of our 4 shows like with a fever of 100, like 102. When I was in college, I did a performance of When My Heart Finds Christmas as a Harry Connick Jr. arrangement for a Christmas concert. And like I had a major sinus infection. I had a fever of over 100. I was sick, sick on stage. I felt faint out there. I was sweating, felt faint, cold sweats. And I sound okay. I was okay. My voice was fine. I mean, I was tired and it was difficult, but even the times that I had foodborne illnesses like food poisoning in the past, I sung, it didn't rupture my vocal cords. So from all of the different accounts of it that I've heard and read and that I've heard him talk about it, and I've read some of the things in their book about it and that kind of thing. My opinion, and I'm not a doctor, so take this with a grain of salt, but my opinion is that he was already kind of abusing his voice anyway around that time, and the food poisoning thing was the catalyst to his vocal abuse to the point where it made his voice vulnerable enough, like maybe put him in some kind of pre-nodular state to where he damaged his voice by singing with the abusive methods that he was using while he was in a vulnerable state from food poisoning. I don't think that it's all just from the food poisoning. You can listen to recordings and performances from the like 94 where his voice is starting to do this like losing its consistency. It's kind of like flipping out of his chest voice and this random like head voice like kind of flip thing every now and then where he can't keep his tone consistent. There are little things and indicators in the mid 90s before the food poisoning incident that his voice was kind of acting up. If you listen to A Change of Seasons, the EP, the studio performance, toward the end, some of those notes are really flat, like even in the studio recording. So there are some indicators that his voice was not completely working all that well, even when the food poisoning incident happened. So I do believe that after that occurred, and whatever vocal damage and injury he sustained, through all that, I do believe that that made his career much more difficult. And I think that they spent a long time trying to get it figured out. And I think that after hearing guys like Mike Portnoy, hearing his opinion on James's singing, and like even how he wanted, like when you listen to Train of Thought and you go back and watch some of their documentaries, and then you listen to Mike Portnoy talk about them on Systematic Chaos and stuff. Like Mike Portnoy went through this phase where he wanted James to sound like super metal, like he wanted to sound like a metal singer. And I just don't think that forcing James's voice down that path when it's not really built for that anyway, I think that it did him a lot of disservice, and I think it messed his voice up. They got bad instruction from bad teachers, and then they gave him this ultimatum where if he didn't shape up, they were going to fire him, stuff like that. I don't know. I feel for James because he has given his all for his audience. He gave everything for his fans, for the band throughout his life. And so, he went through a really rough phase. And so I feel bad for the guy. He got a lot of bad guidance, bad instruction. This is why it's so important to find a good voice teacher. And I don't mean a good voice teacher who's going to tell you what you want to hear. I mean a voice teacher with some principles that bases what they do upon some physiology, that has a plan on how you should approach singing. He clearly has that now, and things are better. So I'm not going to keep waxing philosophical about it, but I think that there were too many cooks in the kitchen for too long. He was dealing with a vocal injury. He didn't know how to manage it. His main instructor that taught him how to sing when he was younger was no longer around, so he didn't have that guidance anymore. He wasn't able to go back and get a refresher on how to approach things. And people capitalized on his fame and said, hey, I can help you, talk about me, and I'll help you, blah, blah, blah. And, I just know that he got bad vocal instruction for a fact. I mean, I know who his instructors were. I've seen their methods. He got bad vocal instruction, and that was a huge part of why he had so many issues, I think, I'd say maybe from like even 2006, 2007 up until early 2020, 2021, 2022. That people like to use the score DVD as like, oh, he was in great form. But the reality is, if you watch the hand cameras, that was a poor performance too. A lot of that was edited and fixed and doctored in post-production. I remember when that DVD came out, I didn't know that it had post-production on it, and I thought it was amazing. And then I kind of learned the truth as I got older that it was doctored. And so, it's okay. I mean, they're going to sell a product. They need it to sound good. But, he's gone through a lot. And he's endured a lot of hate. He's endured a lot of criticism. And You know, I'm just happy that he's managed to find something that's got him enjoying himself on stage again and has him sounding tolerable in comparison to how he used to sound. That's what matters to me. And this is the top of his range. Like, again, this is getting to where it's a little bit difficult for him just in general because of his age, but he is keeping his technique consistent, and that's what's important here. His technique is consistent. He's vertical, leaning. I don't like the lean in, but he's not tilting his neck up, not sticking his tongue out. His embouchures are generally pretty narrow. It's consistent. Okay, well, there he did the sticking neck out thing a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so he didn't go for the high note there, and that's fine because he was struggling to even get the. I think that's how it goes. No. Yeah, he just didn't even go for that note. That's fine. Not bad. Same thing. He's got that kind of high pharynx. Tongue is arched in the back. And I think what's happening is because he's got the space in the pharynx, it's giving him a little bit of resonance. And it's not super nasal. That was one hallmark characteristic of his sound before, too, is that it was very, very nasal. Like he had a ton of nasality. And he's used some throughout this video, but it's not as prominent. It's much more pharyngeal, like oropharynx, like very heavily reliant upon utilizing pharyngeal space. The larynx is not very low. The larynx is like neutral to high consistently throughout his singing. It's very pharyngeal, and you know he's got that Kermit the Frog thing. And you know, like again, I would rather hear that than what he used to do. Yeah, it's more in tune. Like, just being more in tune is a huge part of this, too. Like, that makes it more tolerable. The timbre is not beautiful, but just the fact that it's more in tune helps a lot. They used a little bit of trickery there. They had like a reverb effect or a delay or something. Like he held the note for a second and it made it sound like it was holding it longer. Yeah. But okay, so the thing is, like he used a glissando. He should just slide up. You know, in classical singing, that's considered very sloppy, and you know you don't do that. It sounds kind of like unrefined, but for him to be able to reach his way up to the note, I mean, you hear people in the contemporary world do glissandos and scooping, as we call it, all the time. It's fine. If it helps him hit the note, it's fine. You can use slides and glissandos to help get better chord closure. Sometimes it can help you get better singing line, more legato. In this case, it's completely fine. If it makes him hit the note cleanly, which it did, I'm all for it. It's okay. I'm a lot more willing to forgive James because of the fact that things are better. But we'll listen to the end of it. That's the last end of his singing. That's a Fortune in Lies reference from their first album. Yeah, I mean, it's 3 hour set. At the very end, he sings a 20+ minute long song that pushes his range to the limit for his age. You got to give the guy his props. Like, I'm not gonna bash James. I've never intended to bash James from the beginning. That was never my goal. Even from the very beginning of this channel, I just got asked why he sounds the way that he did, and I explained it. It was never designed to bash him, and I'm not gonna bash him. At least he's trying to do things well. At least he's not throwing in the towel completely and just saying, okay, well, I don't care if I sound like crap. I'm just going to, the fans can deal with it. He clearly acknowledged and understood that he has an issue that he needed to develop and work on and get better, or at least to hold his head up high for the duration of his career, which I can't imagine the band is around for a whole lot longer. I mean, I imagine they're going to retire. They say they're going to work on another album, but I can't imagine they put out more than 2 or 3 at the most. I don't know how many albums they have on their current record contract, but I cannot imagine they put out another album after this contract's over. I mean, they're all getting old. I think that Jordan is close to 70. Like, they can't keep this up. I mean, they're monsters. I mean, they've been doing this for 40 years. They're monsters. The fact that they can play as well and sing as well and everything as they can 40 years later is incredible, considering the high level of skill and intensity required to do this stuff. I mean, the whole band deserves their props. And I've been critical of the band collectively for some choices they made and certain albums and certain styles they went into, but you got to give it to them. They have stayed true to their roots. They've never deviated from what makes them who they are. And I think that James has tried to do that too. I think that James has tried to stay the singer that he has been from the beginning, but the voice is a very fickle instrument, and you can't trust that your body is going to cooperate the way that you want it to. And when you're singing things that are very high and up in the stratosphere and kind of pushing the limits of your range and just the human range as a whole, that kind of stuff can come and go. And so the fact that he's made a conscious effort to try to reestablish some sense of consistency in his late in his career is excellent. So, James, if you see this out there, man, I never meant to bash you. I appreciate and I applaud what you have done with your voice. This is an excellent performance. I think that you have shown that you still got it. And I know that it's hard as you get older. It's hard. I mean, for me, it's hard too. I mean, I'm almost 39, but it's hard for me to sing things that I could sing in my 20s, because I don't have that, super flexible voice like I did back then, And I think that most singers, as you age, you hit that point where, like, you kind of get into that thing that you do well, and it's hard to go back, and it's hard to change. And so he's done a really good job. So that's my analysis of A Change of Seasons by Dream Theater from 2025. I hope that this was informative. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Join my Discord server. I have weekly vocal workshops where I teach people every week. I give voice lessons, all that kind of stuff. I'd love for you to join the community. It's been an honor to be doing this for as long as I have, and it's kind of strange to see this band that's been such a huge influence in my life since I was in high school. I started listening to Dream Theater in 2001. The fact that I was a fan of theirs led me to having a YouTube channel. It's just the craziest thing. So anytime I think about talking about Dream Theater on the internet, it kind of, whatever critiques I would have with the band, I've got to thank them, because I might not have a freelance voice teaching YouTube career had I not been a fan of this band. So it's just kind of an interesting nostalgia for me. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and you will see more videos from me very, very soon.